Have you ever imagined that one day you could make a living by firing other people? Sounds absurd, right? Yet that is exactly the unusual job of Ryan Bingham in the film Up in the Air, a specialist hired by major corporations to say goodbye to their employees on their behalf. Amid the 2008 financial crisis in the United States, when countless people feared losing their jobs, Ryan was the busiest man of all, hopping from flight to meet clients. He spent most of his time listening and helping the unlucky employees find purpose again after being laid off. But both his traditional method and his freewheeling lifestyle started to feel the squeeze as travel budgets were slashed. To solve the problem, Ryan's junior colleague Natalie Keener proposed conducting layoffs via video calls, an idea that clashes with the in-person principle he's followed for years. Released just 1 year after the recession began, Up in the Air is deeply in tune with a moment when unemployment threatened the livelihoods of millions of Americans. The film doesn't just open a window onto a niche profession, it also expresses a profound empathy for timeless human anxieties, about the trade-offs between career and personal life, and between success and failure. In today's video, let's explore the life of Ryan Bingham and the lessons the film's characters leave for anyone struggling to find their footing in changing times. To know me is to fly with me. That's how Ryan Bingham introduces himself. He's constantly on the move, flying to corporate clients and conducting the meetings that terminate people's employment. Being fired is a life-altering shock for employees who haven't prepared for it, so Ryan is meticulous with his words. Behind him is an entire apparatus that powers this specialized service, with a headquarters in Omaha that coordinates contracts and schedules everything he needs before he heads out. Ryan is proud of his work. He's a professional loner who avoids entanglements. Airports are his home. All the travel hassles most people hate, security checkpoints, delays, are, to him, signs that the plan is humming along. As a frequent flyer, he's gunning for 10 million miles on American Airlines. Beyond his day job, Ryan is also a motivational speaker, preaching a minimalist, mobile lifestyle, living with a light backpack. On one business trip, Ryan meets Alex Gorin, a captivating woman just as fluent in the airport ecosystem as he is. They begin a spontaneous affair, meeting whenever their schedules align. One day, back in Omaha, Ryan meets Natalie Keener, a bright and ambitious young hire. Natalie arrives with a slate of ideas for cutting travel costs by conducting layoffs over video. Her arrival not only challenges Ryan's professional creed, it also begins to disrupt the fast-paced, exhilarating rhythm he's built his life around. The reasons for personnel cuts rarely lie with the fired employee's abilities. Such consequential decisions usually stem from macroeconomic calculus an employer has to weigh carefully. Workers understand this in the abstract, but the reality is that a sudden notice can trigger cascading emotions they never anticipated. No one likes being forced into change without warning, whether they loved their job or simply needed a stable income to keep their life afloat. That's why Ryan treats his task with utmost seriousness. Being let go is a brutal, wrenching experience. He has witnessed every reaction: pain, anger, the strained effort to preserve wounded pride behind a vacant stare. This news must be delivered with deliberate care, and to Ryan, Natalie's supposedly disruptive idea is unprofessional and unfair to the people on the receiving end. There are too many sensitive, uncontrollable variables if you're not in the room. Frustrated to see his carefully honed method losing ground to Natalie's cost-cutting pitch, Ryan begins staging mock scenarios to force her to realize that following a checklist isn't enough. And just as he predicted, the theories Natalie learned in school fail to hold up to the messiness of real encounters. To bridge the gap, their boss, Craig Gregory, asks Ryan to mentor Natalie, to show her the unpredictable variables that crop up in the field. And so the seasoned pro and the newcomer become reluctant travel companions, setting off together on a string of flights. At this point, Up in the Air leads us through a series of vignettes that capture the chaotic emotional spectrum of those unlucky enough to be on the termination list. We see everything: shouting in rage, hollow disappointment, resigned nods. Men wonder how they'll tell their wives and kids when they get home. Women feel their competence has been demeaned. They ask why they were rejected, why decades of contributions were cast aside without mercy. In an instant, the future seems to slam shut. They don't know what to do next. These people challenge Ryan and Natalie about the inhumanity of their work. In one scene with Bob, a furious middle-aged man asks how he's supposed to explain his job loss to his children. Ryan wisely keeps quiet, but Natalie jumps in too quickly, trying to reassure Bob by saying this career shock might motivate his kids to raise their grades. Her tone deafness enrages Bob, and the conversation would have derailed had Ryan not deftly stepped in. Having done his homework, he gently touches the abandoned dream Bob once had of becoming a chef, suggesting his children would be proud to see him return to that passion. Natalie mentions she has a second degree in psychology, but test prep didn't teach her how to face the rent bills and family photos her clients lay on the table. Ryan shows her a different path, one forged by experience and empathy. He gives people room to process. He doesn't rush to solutions. After they've poured out their fear and grief, he nudges them back toward the passions and aspirations they buried in the grind. It may sound unrealistic in a tight job market, but at the very least, he offers a path forward, new possibilities to grasp. Losing a job doesn't mean losing the ability to create value. With carefully chosen words and small acts of respect, Ryan not only completes his task, he helps restore the self-worth of people who've just hit one of life's steepest drops. Behind its plot about unemployment, Up in the Air prods us to reconsider stability, a fundamentally subjective state. To Natalie, stability is something measurable, a long-term job and an engagement by 23. Ryan, meanwhile, is content in constant motion. The irony is that their lifestyles run counter to generational stereotypes. Society tells the young to experiment wildly and the seasoned to settle down. Though Natalie doesn't say it outright, the mental strain of upending people's lives wears on her. Even with Ryan by her side, she never imagined her streamlined termination workflow could lead to crisis-level consequences. Her initial excitement fades as she drifts through endless flights and stares at empty offices. Desks overturned, chairs abandoned. Natalie doesn't belong in the business of firing people, and it wasn't the path she originally chose. At a Miami hotel, Alex runs into Ryan and Natalie in an awkward moment. Natalie has just been dumped by text, and Ryan is clumsily trying to comfort the tearful junior. They sit together and give Natalie space to breathe. She confesses she turned down a job in San Francisco to follow her boyfriend to Omaha, lured by the promise of building a life together. In a perfect world, her ultimate goal was that elusive work-life balance, work in the morning, rest at night. Yet there's a contradiction. She's willing to go all in at the office while also insisting on a comically ideal checklist for a future husband. One-syllable name, 6'1", brown hair, kind eyes, loves dogs, works in finance but enjoys the outdoors. No matter how successful she becomes, her life feels incomplete until someone ticks every box. By now, she figures she should be engaged, should be driving a Grand Cherokee, should have it all. Instead, she's pouring her heart out to Ryan and Alex because she's been dumped and her job is draining her by the day. Natalie is a hopeless perfectionist. To her, stability, especially for a modern woman, means running a household while being razor-sharp and agile at work. Ryan and Alex gently remind her that life won't revolve around milestones, but Natalie rejects anything less than perfect. Fulfilling only one half of her concept feels like failure. We can't really blame her for being young, inexperienced, and naive. If blame belongs anywhere, it's with a culture that fills her head with fantasies of being flawlessly well-rounded. The film doesn't make her a fool. Over the course of traveling with Ryan, she listens to his lectures on the mobile life and opens herself to more grounded perspectives. He teaches her basic partner-facing communication, how to empathize, how to add a little humanity to each step of the termination process. She's not cut out for a job requiring more heart than procedure, but she learns a great deal. It's painful to watch her plans collapse. As Up in the Air nears its end, two turning points drive her decision to quit. First, she conducts a video call, layoff of a middle-aged man, and feels the sharp pang of conscience as she hurries him off the call to stay within time limits. Second, she hears that someone she once fired has jumped off a bridge. Using the airport, an emblem of freedom, as a backdrop, director Jason Reitman lets Natalie exit frame, her figure shrinking in the distance. A goodbye tinged with regret, but also the promise of a fresh start. She isn't the only one who changes. Ryan, too, faces moments of reckoning, recognizing holes in his life he's long ignored. The mentor-mentee bond between Ryan and Natalie is one of the film's brightest points. Their conflicting work styles and life philosophies help each fill in the other's missing pieces. For Ryan, Natalie offers a first glimpse of the privileges of commitment. Rewind and study our specialist closely. Ryan is a senior operator in a highly unusual line of business. He spends 322 days a year crisscrossing America, and his life fits inside a suitcase. His one-bedroom apartment in Omaha is just a crash pad. He's the black sheep of his family, having left home very young. His ties with his sisters have frayed over time. The closest thing to reconnection comes when Julie, his younger sister, asks him to pose with cardboard cutouts of her and her fiancé in fun locations. They can't afford a honeymoon. Ryan has his own creed. People grow tired and weighed down by the ties they voluntarily bind themselves with. Only by shedding those attachments can they stay light and outrun the feeling of falling behind. Natalie finds his life design hard to accept. Her ideals are unrealistic, but there's nothing wrong with wanting someone to bring you home and talk to you at the end of the day. Ryan's backpack speech, "Moving slow is a quick way to die," makes her realize her boss carries a deep fear of commitment. When Natalie probes his casual relationship with Alex, Ryan can't offer a convincing rationale for a life spent skimming above the ground. He may seem irresponsible, but he's actually tender-hearted. Otherwise, he couldn't succeed in a job that demands extraordinary empathy. Those soft skills spill over into his personal life as he truly falls for Alex. Natalie may awaken him to the power of connection, but Alex is the catalyst that ignites something primal, the desire to belong. That impulse also nudges him back to Wisconsin to see his sisters. They share a warm stretch of time before Julie's wedding. By the final act, several events suggest Ryan is ready for a real commitment, and that his famous backpack philosophy has been a shield against the fear of loneliness. His change is most obvious when he advises Jim, the groom, that life is fuller with a partner, right as Jim wavers at the threshold of a lifelong vow. Later, cost-cutting forces Craig to curb travel. Back in Omaha, Ryan gets word of the earlier tragedy, and Natalie resigns. When you meet the right person, you won't have to compromise. Perhaps Alex's advice to Natalie is true, but remember, Up in the Air is a dramedy, not a rom-com. To illustrate more precisely, let me borrow the classic ending of The Graduate. There, Benjamin races to a church, snatches the bride, and the two flee on a bus, ecstasy giving way to bewilderment as the weight of their choice settles in. Up in the Air uses a modernized version of that motif. The vehicle is a plane, and when Ryan arrives, he's stunned to find Alex has a family. Who's to blame? Should we fault Alex for secrecy and infidelity, or Ryan for letting emotion override due diligence? In this situation, Ryan has simply run an experiment. Seeking Alex and confessing his feelings cost him nothing. Perhaps it could have been a turning point. He just didn't expect bad news. Suddenly, life throws him into the same free fall as the people he's fired. Abandonment, shock, the need to start over with more effort, to repair and nurture relationships he once took for granted. That will be a long mission. Final moment is quiet, mirroring Natalie's departure, as the camera watches him from behind, looking up at the departures board. Natalie lands a new job, thanks to a recommendation letter from her former boss. Ryan silently donates a chunk of his miles to create free tickets for Julie and her husband, an attempt, however small, to reconnect with family. And then he moves on. His worldview is shifting, preparing him for new chapters, but reality still bears the long shadow of a crisis not yet past. Up in the Air is a clear-eyed reminder that the only constant is change. Change is frightening, but it also brings unexpected goodness and promising outcomes. So let's steady ourselves in the storm, because, in the end, the race we're running is only against ourselves. And that's Filmers' take on the film Up in the Air and the Art of Firing. Drop your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and...
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.